We are counting down the 10 most devious tricks boat brokers use to avoid total rot. From subtle scent bombs that cover up $10,000 in mold outbreaks, to fresh paint jobs designed to hide catastrophic hull damage, these tactics turn a buyer's dream into a financial nightmare. Each entry on this list exposes a specific red flag, moving from surface-level lies all the way to life-threatening deceptions below the waterline. Which scam tops the countdown as the most dangerous of all? Let us start with number 10. Step onto a broker's boat, and the first thing that hits you isn't the view, it's the smell. A wave of vanilla, pine, or ocean breeze rolls out the moment you open the hatch. That's not hospitality, that's a $5 air freshener masking a $10,000 mold problem. Surveyors call it the Febreze Bomb. It's the oldest trick in the book. Drown the stench of rot, mildew, or diesel leaks in cheap perfume, and hope you don't notice the real warning signs. Mold doesn't just hide in plain sight, it hides behind the headliner, under the locker lids, and in the seams where moisture lingers for years. If your nose catches anything stronger than salt air, don't trust the story about light use. Start peeling back the headliner near the windows and check locker corners for black fuzz or slick stains. Mold remediation on a mid-sized cruiser can run anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000, and that's before you even get to structural repairs. A boat that smells like a candle shop is begging you to look closer. Shine equals suspicion. Trust your nose, not the fragrance. Lift a cushion in any broker's salon and you'll find the real story. Fresh upholstery on top, but flip it over, and there's the water ring, yellowed and sharp, tracing the outline of every leak above. That's not a coffee spill. That's rainwater from a cracked port light, or years of drips down a chain plate, soaking in until the foam stinks and the plywood turns black. Surveyors call this the map. The stain is the X, and the leak is always directly above it, every time. Brokers hope you'll judge by the fabric, not the underbelly. But that ring means the deck or port has been leaking for years, and the damage doesn't stop at the cushion. Core rot loves a slow leak. Repairs start at $1,000 if you're lucky, and can run to $6,000 or more if the core is gone. One flipped cushion can save you from a 5-figure disaster. Always check both sides, because the truth is underneath. A freshly scrubbed teak deck can fool even a seasoned sailor. Blonde, uniform, and gleaming in the sun, it looks like a sign of careful ownership. But in the hands of a broker, that shine is often camouflage. Over-sanding and acid bleaching strip away years of weathering, and with it, most of the wood. Every time a deck is sanded, another millimeter disappears. After a decade of aggressive detailing, the original 15 to 25 millimeters of teak can shrink to less than half that. When the bungs, the little wooden plugs that hide the screws, start popping out, or when shiny metal screw heads glint through the grain, you are looking at a deck that is paper thin. At that point, the teak cannot hold fasteners or keep water out. Replacement is not a touch-up, it is a full rebuild. On a mid-sized cruiser, a new teak deck runs anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000, sometimes more. Brokers bank on your eyes, not your fingertips. Always run your finger along the seams, check for loose bungs, and look for exposed screws. If you spot metal, the deck is finished. That is not a cosmetic fix. It is a warning sign of a 5-figure repair hiding in plain sight. Engines don't lie unless someone gives them a head start. Brokers love to say she is all warmed up for you, as if that is a courtesy. It is not. It is a setup. A diesel that is already warm hides its worst secrets: low compression, worn rings, and the kind of starting trouble that only shows up when metal is cold and oil is thick. A true cold start is a surveyor's first test. Here is how you catch the trick. Walk straight to the engine and palm the exhaust manifold. If it is hot, too hot to hold for more than a few seconds, the engine has been run. That heat lingers for an hour or more. A cold engine should feel like the rest of the boat. Cool, maybe a little clammy, never hot. Insist on starting it yourself after it has sat overnight. Watch the exhaust on the first crank. White or blue haze is normal for a minute, but a heavy black cloud or more than 10 seconds of cranking means trouble. That means low compression or fuel issues, and it is expensive. Think $3,000 for a top-end job, $10,000 to $20,000 for a full rebuild. Brokers count on you trusting the smooth, easy start. Don't. A warm engine is a staged alibi. Only a cold start tells the truth. If they will not let you do it, walk away before you inherit a $15,000 mistake. A freshly painted bilge is not a sign of pride, it is a warning. Brokers know that a coat of glossy gray hides more than grime. They paint over oil leaks, fuel stains, and spiderweb cracks in the stringers. Paint cannot bond to oil. Where there is seepage, the paint lifts, bubbles, or stays tacky. That is your cue. Take a coin or the edge of a screwdriver and scratch the surface. If black oil bleeds through, you are not looking at a clean bilge, you are staring at a cover-up. Chronic leaks soak into the fiberglass and the wood, slowly breaking down the structure that holds the engine and keeps the hull stiff. Stress cracks painted over mean the stringers could be failing, and that is not a quick fix. Repairs for oil-saturated stringers or hidden rot start at $2,000 and can climb past $12,000, especially if the engine has to come out. A painted bilge that bleeds is a mechanical confession. Do not trust the shine. Scratch, sniff, and read the evidence. If the bilge cannot pass the scratch test, the boat is not ready for sea or for your money. A shower stall packed with sails, life jackets, and boxes is not a sign of a well-equipped boat. It is a barricade. Brokers pile gear in the shower for one reason, so you will not see the cracked pan beneath or the rot festering behind the bulkhead. Step inside and start moving things, and you will often find a spiderweb of fine cracks in the fiberglass, sometimes hastily rebonded with 3M5200. That white adhesive is strong enough to glue a transom together for a photo, but it is not a structural repair. Beneath that layer, water seeps in, soaking plywood until it turns black and spongy. Transom roti starts quietly, a hairline crack in the shower pan, a soft spot underfoot, but left unchecked, it spreads through the bulkhead and into the stringers. Replacing a rotten shower pan and bulkhead is not a weekend fix. It is a yard job that can run from $3,000 to $15,000, depending on how far the damage has crept. The cost is not just in the fiberglass, it is in the hidden labor, the mold removal, and the hours spent cutting out blackened wood. Always demand that every locker, stall, and compartment be emptied before you inspect. Shine a flashlight into the corners, press on the base of the pan. If you see fresh 3M5200 adhesive or smell musty air, you are looking at a patch, not a repair. Walk away or prepare to write a check that is bigger than you planned. Marine carpet glued to the hull is not there for comfort. It is a disguise. Brokers love it because it hides the slow, silent rot that creeps in where the hull meets the deck. Water seeps through tired fittings or old seams, runs down behind the liner, and soaks into the stringers and core, turning plywood or balsa into black mush while the visible surface stays dry. A soft deck or a spongy cabin sole can cost anywhere from $1,500 for a small patch to $25,000 or more if the rot has spread. The only way to catch it before you buy is with a moisture meter. Pros sweep the meter in a tight grid, every few inches, across the deck, the hull sides, and especially along the joint where leaks love to hide. On a dry, healthy core, readings stay below 18%. Anything higher, especially if it is not just a single spike, but a whole band of elevated numbers, means water has gotten in and the wood is breaking down. Moisture meters are not magic. They can read high near metal or over thick paint, but a persistent wet zone is a red flag. Peel back a corner of the liner or carpet. If the meter jumps or the wood feels damp, you are looking at a structural repair, not a weekend fix. Rot in a hull to deck joint is not just expensive, it can make the boat unsafe. Cosmetic carpet hides the problem, but a moisture meter exposes it. Do not trust soft surfaces or pretty liners. Trust the numbers. If you see readings above 18%, start calculating the real cost and be ready to walk. Fresh bottom paint hides more than old anti-falling. It can hide a hull that is rotting from the inside out. Brokers know that nothing scares a buyer faster than a field of blisters, so they grind them flat, smear on body filler, sometimes actual Bondo from the auto parts store, and roll on a thick coat of paint. The surface looks flawless, but underneath the laminate is separating, moisture is trapped, and the core is turning to mush. This is the Bondo blister job, a cosmetic fix for a structural cancer. Surveyors do not trust a shiny hull. They reach for a phenolic hammer and start tapping every 2 to 3 inches, working in a tight grid. A healthy hull rings sharp and clear, ping, ping, ping. But when the hammer hits delamination, the sound drops to a dull thud. Not once, but over a band 6, 8, even 10 inches wide. That continuous dull patch is the sound of fiberglass skins peeling away from a soaked, rotten core. It is not one blister, it is a whole section that has lost its strength. The difference is night and day. Ping, ping, thud. That thud is your wallet groaning. Proper osmosis repair is not cheap or quick. It means peeling the gel coat, drying the hull for months, and rebuilding the laminate. That is a $10,000 job on a small cruiser and $30,000 to $50,000 for a 40-foot boat. Bondo and paint cost a few $100s and buy just enough time to make the problem someone else's. If a seller cannot show receipts for a full bottom job, yard invoices, photos, a timeline, assume the worst. Tap every foot of the hull. If you hear a dull band that runs longer than 6 inches, walk. That is not a surface fix. It is a structural failure waiting to happen. A new frame bolted alongside an old one is not always the upgrade it looks like. Brokers call it reinforcement. Surveyors call it the sister rib shortcut. Here is how it happens. The original rib or frame is rotten, soft, black, and crumbling where it meets the hull. Instead of cutting it out and rebuilding, someone bolts a fresh piece of wood right next to it, maybe even slathers on some injectable epoxy like git rot for good measure. To the untrained eye, it looks solid, but the cancer is still growing underneath. Rot does not respect stainless bolts. It spreads from the old wood into the new, turning both into mush within a season or two. This is where the ice pick comes in. Find a hidden spot on the old frame, inside a locker or under a sole plate, and press the pick in. If it sinks with almost no resistance or comes out black and wet, the core is gone. That is not just a cosmetic problem. It means the structure that holds the hull together is failing, and the repair is little more than a splint on a broken bone. Epoxy consolidants like git rot are only meant for early stage, minor decay, never for wood that has already lost its strength. Manufacturers say it themselves. If the pick goes in easily, the wood is too far gone for any miracle cure. Proper sistering means removing all the rot, drying the area, and bonding new structure to clean, solid laminate. Anything less is a ticking time bomb. The cost to fix a botched sister job? A small section might run $2,500, but if the rot has crept into the hull or stringers, you are looking at $10,000 to $15,000 or more. Insurers know the difference between a real repair and a cosmetic cover-up. If they find evidence of shortcut sistering after a claim, do not expect them to pay. When you see a new rib bolted to old, probe the original. If it crumbles, the boat is structurally compromised. Walk away before the whole frame gives out. A thick bead of Sikaflex running along the keel joint is not a sign of careful maintenance, it is a warning. Brokers call it a fresh seal, but surveyors know it as the last cosmetic trick before disaster. The keel smile is that curved crack where the lead meets the fiberglass stub. It looks harmless, just a line of flexible caulk, but what is underneath can sink a boat and bankrupt the owner. Here is what happens. Years of sailing or a single hard grounding, flex the stub and stretch the bolts. The hull moves, the keel shifts, and the original bedding cracks. Instead of dropping the keel, inspecting the bolts, and rebuilding the stub, someone runs a fat bead of Sikaflex along the gap and calls it fixed. But sealant cannot hold a 10,000-pound keel. It cannot stop movement, and it cannot save you when the bolts have started to corrode or the stub is crushed. The next time the boat heels hard or grounds again, the smile opens up, water rushes in, and the keel can start to work loose. Surveyors do not trust caulk. They trust the sling test. With the boat hanging in the travel lift, they watch the joint as the slings are let off and the hull settles on the blocks. If the smile opens and closes even a few millimeters, that is the keel shifting under the boat's own weight. That movement is not cosmetic. It means the bolts are stretched, the stub is crushed, or the grid inside is cracked. Insurance companies see movement at the keel joint and walk away. Some policies specifically exclude claims for damage caused by pre-existing structural issues. If you buy a boat with a working smile and a fresh bead of caulk, you may find yourself uninsurable, or worse, responsible for a repair that could cost $10,000 to $50,000, and that starts with dropping the keel and ends with rebuilding the grid. No amount of flexible sealant can substitute for solid bolts and a sound stub. If you see a thick, uneven line of Sikaflex, demand a haul-out and a sling test. Insist on pulling a floorboard and inspecting every bolt for corrosion, pitting, or movement. If the broker hesitates or the smile opens under load, walk away. A keel that moves is a fatal flaw, not a maintenance quirk. The only honest repair starts with dropping the keel, inspecting the bolts, and rebuilding to the builder's specification. Anything less is a gamble with your safety, your insurance, and your wallet. When the keel starts talking, listen. The boat is telling you to run. Across all 10 tricks, one pattern stands out. Every shortcut relies on our trust in appearances. Cosmetic fixes do not heal rot. They hide it, leaving buyers exposed. In today's market, deception is not rare. It is routine. The real lesson is simple. A boat's beauty is never proof of its integrity. Trust your tools, not the shine. Have you ever caught a cover-up? Let me know in the comments.